Oh, well, how have you been, mate? Okay?
Yeah, really good, mate. Just getting back into the swings of thing now. Week 5 of pre-season, but yeah, really enjoying it. I'm feeling really good and healthy, so yeah, I'm good, mate. Thanks.
Happy days, good man. So before we get stuck into your rugby story, where was home for you as a kid and who lived with you?
I grew up with my mum and dad and my little sister, who's a few years below me, in Bradford, in an house in Bradford.
Okay.
Lived there till around 8 or 9, and then moved over to the south of France when my dad signed for Catalan at about 8.
Yeah.
And we lived there lucky enough to live there for 3 years, in Cannes, Saint Cyprien, which were beautiful. And then come back home and lived in Bradford ever since, and kind of born and bred Bradford, grew up here. So yeah, that's been on for a long time.
Right, and we'll talk a bit more about it in a bit, mate, but how was it adapting as a kid going to France? Did you find it easy, or was the language barrier difficult? Or
No, obviously, looking back at it now from being like as an adult, it's kind of an experience that I wouldn't change for the world. Obviously, when I was younger, leaving all my friends and family over here and moving over, it kind of seemed quite daunting. I moved to a full French school, so no one spoke English there. I couldn't speak French, so the first year or so it took quite some adjusting. A lot of hard times. I had to get tutors and kind of got stuck by myself in that sense. But no, I loved every minute of it looking back, and it's one thing I wouldn't change for the world. And really an eye-opening experience looking back at it now, of seeing a different culture, a different lifestyle, and knowing that it's nice to have a change every now and again.
Yeah, something you probably took for granted a little bit as well, mate, wasn't it, being a kid? And that's just one of them things, isn't it? But,
yeah, definitely, mate.
So, obviously, rugby's in the blood, isn't it? But where and how did you find rugby, and where was you introduced to it, mate, club-wise?
Yeah, obviously, like you mentioned, it's run through the family. My dad plays, both my granddad played, my uncle played professionally, so it's kind of in the family. I joined a club called West Bowling in Bradford when I was around 5 years old, and played there up until I left to France, and then played for a junior club called Jnr Catalans in France, which were kind of like the feeder team, you call it.
Yeah.
France, and played there for the 3 years that I was over there. Then came back and rejoined West Bowling, and then joined Siddle when I got to around 14, and then finished my amateur days there.
Right, mate. So we'll touch on why that happened in a bit, if that's all right, mate.
Yeah.
So if you can remember back, obviously 5's young. What was the process at that age? Because was there a bit of tag, mate, or you obviously had to play a year or two above yourself at that age?
Yeah. Obviously, I was young. I was a year below, so I played a couple of games, a couple of years above myself. I played mostly the year above myself until they were an age group for myself. But West Bowling, it's a massive club in Bradford. Probably, in my opinion, the biggest club in Bradford. Amateur-wise, there's not many clubs that compete with it in every single age for junior level.
Okay.
There's different junior clubs, but they don't have a club there's not another club that has teams from 5, 6, 7, 8 onwards. So, obviously playing a year above myself when I was young, and then managed to make lifelong friends that I'm still mates with now, still speak with regularly now, that I've played with ever since I was 5 there. So, yeah. It's a great club, and one that I love a lot.
Yeah, I think rugby is pretty good at that, regardless of the call, mate. We're like lucky with that sport, aren't we? They'll probably be your mates till you're in the pub drinking stout or whatever, won't it, mate?
Definitely,
so you're on that. So when you moved to Catalan, how old was you? 8?
I was 8, yeah.
And you come back at 10 or 11?
Yeah, I come back at 10. I was turning 11 just before my first year of high school.
Right. So what's the school system like over there, in his sports? Part of the curriculum, mate, or is it something you had to go and find?
I think obviously because I was only in primary school, we didn't do much sports within school. Obviously we did sports as in PE.
Yeah.
But quite a lot of people that I went to school with played in the same rugby team as me. But they were obviously, it were a bit different. I was playing in a team. I can't really remember why, but I was playing in a team. I think it were a year or two above myself over in France, which were really tough because you get into 9, 10, and there were some kids that were massive, and I'm only small now, and I were a small kid, so that were quite tough. But I played for that same team, and there wasn't that much sport within school. Just outside of school, there were football teams and rugby league's massive in the south of France, obviously, with it being the home of Catalans. So, we're playing every Saturday, Sunday, tournaments, and the tournaments over there, they go on for hours and hours. You start at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, you don't finish till 5, because obviously they have the 2 hours in between the days where they stop everything for lunch and a siesta, they call it, don't they? Yeah. So we had obviously, then I had that throughout school. So we got to school at 9, I'd be home for 12. Spent 2 hours at home every day, or you'd stay in school for them 2 hours and you just chill, have your lunch, and then you go back.
Siestas in witness, mate.
No, go back to school till 5. But yeah, it was a great experience, like I mentioned before, and it was a lot different to what it is over here.
And as a kid, are you seeing, other than the size, Will, are you seeing much difference in the rugby? Because I don't want to answer it for you, but as a kid, you just play, don't you? You love it, and whoever's in front of you is in front of you, aren't they?
Yeah. I don't think you can really assess it that much when you're playing at that young of an age. Obviously, looking back at it now, there's some great players that I played with when I was younger that I played against at international level at under-16s. When I played for England, there were kids in that team that I played with when I was 8, and there's a lot of kids coming through at the Catalans system that I've played with when I was young, which is obviously a madness, but you can't really tell it, obviously, at that age who's going to make it and who's not. You're obviously too young, so you just get on with it, like you mentioned, and you just get down and have fun with your mates.
Right, so the time comes to come home, mate, and you're that age where, would you have come back to year 6 or year 7? Well,
no, I came back around the end of that 6-week period as you leave primary school. So I came back just before I started high school.
All right.
I went straight back into high school. Yeah.
Yeah. So you missed the whole would there have been a town team at Bradford at your age? How old would we have been? Under 11 sort of representative team?
I'm not too sure, mate. I'm not too sure. I couldn't tell you. I don't think they will have been.
Right. So how did you find the transition coming back and going into high school from the foreign school?
Obviously, it's massively different. It's massively different for anyone going from primary to secondary. But obviously, getting used to being back in English lessons and learning how the curriculums are a lot different, and learning a whole language were basically my focus for 3 years. So if there wasn't much learning beyond that, it was just learning how to speak another language and learning how to basically live. And when I came back to high school, it was tough because you're learning properly now, and you've missed probably 2 or 3 vital years of school where you're learning a lot of stuff and you're moving forward into growing as a child. So obviously it was tough coming back in and learning more and more in English lessons and getting dropped in and out of sets and moving up sets, moving down sets, being good at some subjects. But no, it were good. It wasn't as tough as it was probably for my sister, who was struggling to read and write in English because she'd had to obviously grow up in France. So I was quite lucky in that sense. Yeah.
Probably come back and they threw you into German as well and didn't even put you in French.
No, I had to do a French GCSE at 16 by myself in school. They didn't do it. I had to do it by myself in a classroom, so that was a bit different.
Fair enough, mate. So you're back at West Bowling, are you, mate, at this point? Yeah. So what's the standard like of school rugby to club rugby?
Well, we didn't play much school rugby. They weren't really a rugby team. Right. I remember playing a few games in year 7 and 8. Obviously for that school year, and we got pumped, mate. Obviously every week. There weren't many rugby players in my school.
Okay.
I don't think there were.
Bizarre, really, isn't it?
My age, it's hard. Yeah. But I played a couple of years above myself in school for some teams, which had a few more rugby players in. But compared to club rugby, they were not at my school. Compared to some other schools in Bradford, there were all my mates that had got to the same schools and different schools that had played. So it were nothing compared to the rugby we played at club level.
Right, and was there any union around then, and would it have tempted you anyway, or?
I think I started playing union when I was around 13, and I loved it, mate, to be honest. I loved the crack, I loved the game. I didn't mind the differences between rugby union and rugby league. I just got on with it, and obviously you enjoy it, and the club that I were at were a really good club in Old Broadlands in Halifax, and it were a right club. We made national cup finals, Yorkshire Cup finals, and I started playing a bit of union then and stopped when I got to around 16 when I joined the academy at Huddersfield.
Right, so when it got serious, mate.
Yeah, when it got pretty serious, yeah.
Right, so for people that won't know, mate, Gaz Widdop's club that as well, isn't it? Is Old Broadlands. Yeah, so they beat the Wids, who I've played for a couple of years ago in the National Cup. They did, just before lockdown.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good game. So at that age, what position you playing rugby league at that point, mate?
I was playing mostly halfback. I don't think I played many fullback games when I were in amateur.
Yeah.
When I got to start playing union, I started playing a couple of games at 10, and then I started playing a couple of games outside back at 13.
I was going to say that. I think I could see you at 13, really.
Yeah, but then I played a lot of 12. Played a lot of 12, kind of like a second receiver.
Yeah, so not the crash ball. So would you like your outside centre?
No,
yeah.
Because the lad who played outside centre at my club were great at them outlines, and I were probably better out back playing with the ball a bit more. So we kind of found a really good rhythm of me playing 12, and a lad called Tom Inman who was just signed for Halifax. He come through at Warrington.
Right.
He's at Halifax Panthers now, but he played 10 and I played 12, and that were really good fun.
Just me being nosy, really, Will. So how did you find playing the game tighter to the ruck rather than wider to the ruck? Did it give you time, or did your footwork give you time? And have you always had that footwork?
I think obviously as a 10, you're generally like a bit more of a 7 in league. You play a bit more as a scrum half. So, and that's never really been my game. I've never really been an organiser or someone to start throwing big, massive, fancy passes or drawing into the line. I'm well known for my footwork, but that's something I'm trying to develop into my game now, is my passing game. But obviously playing at 12, it gave me a bit more running time and a bit more running space. I got to take on the line.
What you see.
Yeah. Essentially, basically, instead of just passing at 10, which I kind of didn't really like.
Yeah, and defensive roles, mate. Which did you prefer? Because you're not shy of your defence side, are you? Which really?
No. I think at 10 you defend a lot more than you do at 12.
And bigger lads as well, innit?
Yeah. When I were younger, you defended a bit more at 10, and but at 12 it was still quite tough, because the 12s that I were playing against, they weren't 12s like me. They were like an extra middle. Yeah. And they were playing as in like they were running the big crash lines.
Yeah, the platform setters.
And so it were a bit different, but it's something I got used to. And when I played union, I loved it, playing week in, week out. I really did. I loved it.
Yeah, if you wouldn't play 13 for me, I think I'd play your fullback for broken field. I wouldn't really want you to kick the ball. I want you to play what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Usually.
I'd love to give that a go, union.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? It'd suit your running style, definitely, mate. But not that I'm an expert, by the way. But, do you know what I mean? But I just think the way you play in broken field, you'd be deadly in rugby union. I'm shocked that no one's tried to tie it up, which we'll talk about in a bit, if that's all right. But so how competitive are West Bowling in your local cups and your national cups? Are you competing?
When I got to about 11, obviously you start playing a bit more competitive. You get a league and you start playing national cups. So we were always in the first division. My first season back at West Bowling, we was in the second division. I think I played 3 or 4 games and we got promoted straight away. So we was in the first division playing against top teams, tough players that play Super League now. So we did always did well in the league. We never won when we came second when I got to around 13. We was always in top 4. And we got to, I think the best we did in the cup was the semis. When I think I were about under 12s or under 13s, and then we didn't really enter many national cups, so I didn't really play in many cups, but the league we always did quite well in. Yeah.
I suppose you can be happy at that as well, because you're competing, mate, aren't you? It's not like you're just straddling on to playoffs. You're actually you're challenging, aren't you? So as a kid, I think, although you might not be winning it, or you can accept that you're up there. So through school, mate, how did you find school? Is it more social for you, or did you quite enjoy the theory side?
To be fair, it were a bit of both, really. My friendship group at school, I'm still really close with now. My best mate, he's been my best mate since I was 11, and we've been best mates ever since. And obviously, I'm 20 now, so it's a long time, nearly a decade.
Yeah.
But I'm not actually that bad at school. I managed to pass all my GCSEs. I think that probably come down to my dad. He kind of gave me a bollocking if I didn't do well in school, and always made sure that I would behaving in school and getting on with it. So I didn't really mind it. I didn't really hate it. I enjoyed going and seeing my mates and having a laugh, but I didn't really mind doing the lessons either, which were kind of a win-win for me.
Yeah. So when did your ability start getting noticed, Will? And was that what enforced the move to Siddle, maybe, without being rude?
No, so to be fair, I was still at West Bowling at the time, and then I managed to get a trial at Saints. I think my dad spoke to a couple of people there at Saints and just said, "Look, give him a chance." I'd only had one scholarship offer at 14. I only got the offer from Wakefield.
Right.
I think, it was tough. Obviously, it's tough having obviously my dad behind me and people knew me for that reason. And
yeah,
I had minor interest from clubs like Castleford and Bradford when I was around 14, but no one really gave me a chance. Right. A lot of question about my attitude as a kid. I think that kind of reflected off my dad. He's known for, in the rugby community anyway, for being quite a natural player. He didn't train that hard, but when he got to a game day, he'd turn it on. So yeah. I think a lot of people thought I'd be the same. And at 14, 15, I was nowhere near the same player as what my dad is. Well, my dad was at that age, and there's people the scouts that had been around him as a kid and me as a kid, and I think they kind of overlooked me in that sense. And didn't really have much interest. I signed at Saints when I was 14. And I think I did 6 months there, and then they said they had Lewis Dodd, who's playing Super League now, and they had him. He's the year above me, so they said, "Look, we've got this kid who's fantastic, and rightly so. He's absolutely killing it in Super League. He's won a grand final, and Dodd is one of them players that I love watching, especially as a fellow player, just love watching him play." So they said, "Look, there's no real pathway there for him into the first team. If he's got interest elsewhere, or he can go somewhere where he's going to play week in, week out at scholarship level, go take it." Right. And that's when I got a phone call from Andy Kelly at Huddersfield, who said, "Look, they took me on a talent transfer, so they'd been and watched me play rugby union at Broadlands."
All right, okay.
They had a few players that I played with at all Broadlands playing for Huddersfield on a talent transfer. Right. They signed me that way, and then I started playing for Huddersfield that way. But I didn't really have much interest as a kid.
Yeah, do you know what's mad? It's like at your age, there you've seen both sides of rugby, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you've seen the side what it takes to play at that level, which you've clearly had, and unfortunately, they've not judged it on you, have they?
Yeah, I suppose
at
so.
At that early stage, and that must have been difficult to shake off. And then you've seen the business side as a young lad. So how did you take? Was it difficult, Will?
I think obviously as a kid, coming through like at 14, when my own, like the only hope I had really in life, I wasn't really bothered about any other job. I didn't enjoy much else apart from playing rugby. My weekends would be filled with rugby. Every day after school, I'd be coming home watching rugby. If I didn't have school, I'd go to training with my dad and watch it from that aspect, and go watch him train at professional clubs. And I think it kind of drove me a bit more. I had people who questioned me a lot as a kid, and I had scouts that weren't really interested. People said I had a bad attitude, and I think that kind of fueled me into wanting to work harder as a person, and prove people wrong. Obviously, it were quite. I guess it works out now because I've managed to get into the opportunity I'm in now, where I can say to Saints, I could see where they were coming from, and I kind of thank them in the sense that they didn't leave me on. They just wanted me to play as a kid, and that's something you've got to appreciate, definitely. But I think my focus as a kid was just to prove people wrong. I was sick of people probably saying I wasn't as good as my dad as a kid, which I'd get off players I was playing against at 14 on an amateur day. As you do when you're playing, and I had probably people thinking I want that good. And to be fair, at 14, 15, I want a massive impact on teams. I want one of those players you'd look at as a kid and think, wow, he's ridiculously good. I just enjoyed playing, and I enjoyed turning up week in, week out. I enjoyed training, and all my mates played for the same team at bowling. One of my best mates' dads, he was a coach at bowling, so it was quite tough when I left there. But I wanted to just prove to people, that I was good enough.
Yeah, and there's no wrong going somewhere where no one really knows you for you. And it's just a fresh start, mate, and whatever comes is because of you, isn't it? Yeah. Whether it's good or bad, it'll be on your actions. Yeah. So you've had to shake that title off virtually all your playing life. I mean, you made from a kid, and how do you go about doing that? Because no matter where you look, and you'll probably have like whoever your dad plays for, you'll have a top, won't you? And you can't help your surname being Pryce, can you? Yeah, you know what I mean? And how do you get away from that and deal with that? Because I didn't want to put you on a spot really, but you'd have had a target on your head playing, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Simply off your name, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I think obviously a lot of the coaches who I played against at amateur level will have known who my dad was. They'll have watched him play regular Super League, and they'll have probably mentioned me in team talks before games, or I remember playing games and I'd be getting peppered from everyone, and people would just be trying to smash me, or I'd get smoked off at ball. People would be giving you stuff. Parents sometimes give you stick, sometimes, which were rare, but it could happen. But I think a good thing where I just didn't ever really want to shy away from it. I think I was quite proud to be his son. I am still proud to be my dad's son, and I think, he wasn't just the rugby player Leon Pryce. He was my dad, Leon Pryce, and outside rugby, he's taught me a lot of stuff along with my mum. They were great role models for me as a kid, and they still are now. I learn so much from them day in, day out. But I remember my dad saying, "Look, you've got to just outwork people. You've got to outwork them." And I think it's something I've kind of had instilled in me now. I always want to try to be the fittest. And I think growing up, I've now, to the stage I'm now, only past 2 or 3 years, I've been able to do some stuff on the field that I've managed to do now in terms of my skill and my own ability. But I remember when I was younger, just wanting to outwork everybody, wanting to be loud. I remember just trying to talk all the time in games, not giving people stick, but just talking, as in calling plays, being loud, talking defensively, attackingly, and that kind of just instilled some confidence in me in being myself. I'm quite a confident person anyway. An extrovert. I like talking to people. I like meeting new people and having general conversation. So it was good just being myself. And he just said, "Look, you've got to prove people wrong, that you are as good as I think you are, and I am as good as I think I am." And that was something I kind of carried through my whole career, and I am doing now.
No, it's a great attitude, mate. So what was you like in a new environment, Will, in a new team? So you've gone from Saints to Huddersfield, which is a big jump, isn't it, mate? A big change.
Yeah.
On your club level, you've gone to a new club to challenge yourself and show it's you. So how are them new environments? So you've just said there you're happy to talk to people and get to know people, and you're open to challenges, obviously, mate, because of which we'll talk about later on. But is it a difficult situation for you initially? And are you going to these places as a halfback? Yeah. So you need to be vocal, don't you? And
yeah. I remember going to Huddersfield, and I knew obviously the lads I played with at Old Broadley and at Huddersfield, so I managed to mingle. When you're a kid, it's easy to make friends. I'd say, you're young, you can get along with anyone and everyone. So, and a couple of my mates outside of school, just people who I'd grown up with, they played at Siddle. So, and I'd played against these Siddle lads since I was 6, 7. So you know each other, you hate each other because you try to kill each other every weekend when you play against once you meet people and you get to know people and you see people outside of rugby, you create friendships and bonds. And the new environments, for me, I suppose it's just something you've got to try and take in your stride. You've got to be open to meeting people, speaking to people, getting to know people. And I'm happy with doing that. I like meeting new people, like I mentioned. And, it's tough. You can be scared. I remember just thinking it were the best things for me. I remember thinking, look, if I want to have the best shot at making something out of this, I've got to just give it everything I've got. I want to enjoy my rugby at West Bowling. I remember I was just I got released from Saints. I was sad. I was upset. I was angry at not being given an opportunity, I suppose. And I always try to prove people wrong, and I'm a competitor, so I wanted to play competitive rugby week in, week out. And I suppose at West Bowling, it were the coaches, Martin Tordoff, who's one of my best mates' dads. He's a great guy, and they made rugby enjoyable for me for a very, very, very long time. And I suppose at 15, 16, I wanted to start winning. I wanted to start winning trophies.
It changes, mate. Yeah.
I wanted to play in national cups, which I wasn't playing at West Bowling. I wanted to play in Yorkshire Cups. I wanted to win. I wanted to compete at the top of every league. So I think that were just a big reason in me moving to Siddle and me having a change of mindset, I suppose.
Yeah, and you touched on before. So was the decision ever put to you? It's league or union, or was that just a decision you took?
Well, when I got to 16, you obviously get your contracts to play.
Yeah.
To sign academy, and I was lucky enough to get a contract at Huddersfield, and I'd just come off the back of playing for England at under 16 level, so I'd got through to the England squad. and I got a contract offer from, was it Yorkshire Carnegie? I think they've gone bust now.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, they were still playing in quite a high division, I think. So I was playing for Yorkshire Carnegie at county level. I was playing for Yorkshire at county level, and then I was playing for Huddersfield as well, at obviously at a scholarship and academy level. So at Huddersfield,
busy lad.
Yeah. I was playing Saturday, Sunday. You'd be training 3, 4, 5 times a week. So it was just what I loved. But at the time, rugby union weren't paying for kids to sign on at 16, whereas rugby league you sign your academy contract. You're now a professional player. You sign your professional contract. So I think that was one thing. I saw it as I wanted it to be my job. I'd just left school. I needed to obviously have a source of income and have money to get around. But I think obviously growing up around league, I knew league a bit more. Oh, sorry, mate.
You all right?
I knew league obviously a lot more than I did union. That was probably the main reason why I chose league than union, because I've been around it so long, and obviously my dad's played.
Yeah. So do you mind if we go back a little bit then, mate? Sorry. So what's the process of selection for national, regional, area players? Can you talk us through that, or what you remember about it, please, mate?
Yeah. So what I can remember was you'd play obviously for your amateur club, your amateur club tour, and then the club, I think, put forward, or the selectors had put forward, and you'd go and play for your regional county. So I'm from West Yorkshire, so I play for West Yorkshire, and then you play against Central Yorkshire, East Yorkshire, North Yorkshire, South Yorkire, and you'd play against all them. And I think it was once every month, and they'd be pretty big games. There were a lot of people there. There were obviously a lot of kids there, and you'd play 15 on 15. I think it were like 40-minute matches, so you'd be there all day. And then at the end of that, you ended up getting selected for Yorkshire, which is your region. So I played for Yorkshire, managed to get selected for Yorkshire Carnegie, which were playing for them every couple of weeks on an amateur basis. And then obviously the selectors came to try sign players to play professional and sign a professional contract, which is where some players sign, some players don't. A bit similar to academy, I suppose. And that's when I went back to league.
Right, and you'd played for England 16s in rugby league, hadn't you, mate?
Yeah.
So is the process very much similar? You'd play for your club, you'd play regional, wouldn't you, mate?
Yeah, it's pretty different in that sense. I think when you're getting selected for the 16s, you go do fallout sessions. So your professional club, so mine was Huddersfield, will put forward, I think it was 5 or 6 players to go and do these England trials. Yeah. And there'd be every single club would do that. So there'd be like 60 lads there training. We did it in over in West Part in Leeds. And we were all in Leeds, sorry. And I think it was 5 or 6 sessions over the space of a couple of months. Yeah. And then they selected the England squad for the France game. So that were how we ended up getting selected at, and I was lucky enough to end up getting selected for that. But I remember training quite well in them sessions. I remember it being tough. We used to do like a Yorkshire v Lancashire game at the end of every session. You'd do 13 on 13, and you kind of drop yourself in as kids. And I remember doing pretty well in them games and being lucky enough to get selected for that team.
Do you feel a definite lift in standard, mate, when you go to them sort of things?
Yeah, obviously you're playing against the 5 or 6 best players of the best teams that they're in. So you'd have players from Saints, Wigan, Warrington that you'd be playing against who were the best in their team. Yeah. So you're playing against, at your age, the best of the best. And, the team we had at 16 for England, players like Matty Nicholson, who's playing at Warrington now, Kane Robb, who plays regularly for Castleford, Bailey Hodgson, who's over in Newcastle in Australia. Yeah. Who played for Castleford. You got AJ Wallace, who were at Leeds, and he's killing it at championship level for Bradford. And there's loads more players that are playing championship first team. So it were a high standard team. We had a great team, and the players that I played with there I still speak to now on occasion. So it were a great experience.
Well, at this point, mate, at both courts, you're playing elite, aren't you, mate? Yeah. Virtually elite at both courts. What did you find most or least transferable between the two sports?
What's like the similarities?
Yeah, so what did you find worked in both codes, and what did you find you had to tweak in the other code? There might be nothing, mate, because of where you played. It's very similar, isn't it?
It's quite similar, yeah. And I think for me, obviously growing up around rugby and obviously rugby's just me. I've always loved rugby. I'm quite a natural player in the sense I've got good footwork and I'm quite fast and I know how to play with a ball. So I think that we're quite similar in both codes. I think just the technical sides of both games are a lot different in terms of rucking and not giving penalties away.
You didn't get involved in the rucks, did you, mate?
Sometimes when you're in that position, you got to just do it.
You just got to,
It was like a lot of times I'd be standing too tall and I'd just get jackled straight off a ball, or come in from the side and not know that I was doing it illegally, or I'd hit someone around the chest in a tackle, which is fine in league, and they'd be like, right, no, you're hitting too high, it's a penalty, and stuff like it's just stuff like that. Like obviously the intricacies of different games that you have to get used to.
That's a great word. That's what I was going to say. It's the little intricacies, mate, isn't it? It's the dark arts and stuff. So for listeners and viewers that might not know, if you're playing at 6 or 7 in rugby league, you're defending usually outside your centre, aren't you, mate?
Yeah.
So in rugby union, you're in the heartbeat of the action at 10 and 12 defensively. As the game shifts, you'll virtually be in and around the ball, won't you?
Yeah.
Both sides of the ball, just in case people didn't understand that well. So with you choosing rugby league, mate, and although you got the offer from Huddersfield, is anyone else sniffing? Are he offering anything, or was it always going to be Huddersfield anyway?
No, I think at that age you have the club. So say if you play for Warrington and Saints want this kid from Warrington, they've got to pay a fee of 10,000. I think it is for insurance or something. I'm not too sure, right. But they've got to pay, and I don't think any club would have wanted to pay 10k for me then. And like I said,
I'm sure they would now, wouldn't they?
I'm not too sure, but yeah, it were a lot different when I was 16. So when Huddersfield offered me the contract, I was lucky enough to get a bit more extra money on my contract because I played for England, and our class is probably a higher standard of player compared to the lads that had not quite made that squad.
Yeah, elite player, mate, without being rude, isn't it?
Yeah. Obviously, with all due respect, it's what your name falls under in the category, obviously.
Of course it is.
So I just chomped at the bite and went straight for the contract. And obviously, after being turned away at Saints and kind of seeing that, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and, you got to take the opportunities. I just took the contract straight away, and I were happy to do that.
Well, people can open doors for you, Will, but you've still got to walk through them, haven't you, mate?
Yeah, definitely.
So, how is it? 18th academy first team. There was no reserve for you, was there?
No, when I was there, so it was when I got to academy, it just changed to you'd be 17 and 18 playing academy.
Yeah,
and then anything above 18, where you'd have to be in the first team, or else you won't. Or else you wouldn't be playing basically, because they scrap reserves off. But I think I played 2 games. And then by the time I'd played 2 games in academy, we COVID it. So we went straight to COVID for my first year of academy. So, it were basically just them 2 age groups.
Okay, mate. And what happens for you during COVID? Because it can't have been nice that at an academy level, can it? Because your future out the back, you've not, without being rude, that year, a lot of people developed, don't they? So you've not been able to prove yourself really. Did they let you take gym stuff home? Did you go and do personal sessions? Or
no, that were more for the first team. I think I remember being in the academy and not doing anything at all within Huddersfield, but I think that was just the genuine thing for every club everywhere. You couldn't train, obviously.
Your sound's gone off, Will. Yeah. Yeah, there you are, mate. Yeah.
So it was just training. If you did any training, it'd have to be at home. And when I got to, I think
within the hour though, wasn't it?
Yeah, within the hour. Yeah. But when at my old house where we used to live in COVID and where we lived when I grew up, me and my dad bought me a Smith machine, so I had kind of like a gym set up in my garage, which were lucky because obviously not many people have that. Yeah. And I remember you have to find stuff to do and to keep you from being bored, I suppose. And that year or so being in COVID when I didn't do any rugby at all. I didn't see anybody from Huddersfield. We didn't train. I just remember training by myself, and there were a field about a minute walk away from my house, a rugby field around the corner, and I'd go up there nearly every day and do my own little bits and do my running and training by myself in the gym. And I think I kind of put on a lot of size. I think I remember that COVID time being probably the reason why I ended up doing so well when I came back into the academy. I think I lost all ability to go and play rugby week in, week out, which you kind of take for granted. And I remember my dad saying to me and kind of talking to him and being like, when you go back and play, be happy to be back and playing and take the opportunities you get, because you don't get them your whole life. And when they get taken away from you, you understand how hard it is without it. And that was probably the reason I kicked on so well when I came back into the academy setup at Huddersfield.
Yeah. And as much as, which if you talk about now, if you can, but how lucky had you been with injuries? Because if you'd been unlucky, that gave you the time to fully repair, mate, didn't it? And it's like a new signing then when you go back, isn't it? And so how would you have been with injuries?
Well, touch wood, I was lucky enough to not have any major injuries, and touch wood to not get any in the future. And I've not had many really, but I suppose you'd use that time to rehab yourself, and you could do that type of stuff realistically at home. Your rehabilitation, your exercises. But I was lucky enough not to have an injury at that time, and my body would just kind of, I suppose it kind of grew. I kind of put on a lot of weight. I put on a lot of bad weight, and then I kind of trimmed all back down, and kind of go through that stage of puberty where you get a bit bigger and a bit stronger. And I kind of just progressed as I grew into my body a bit really at 17, and put on a little bit more size through training at home and eating a lot more and being at home a lot more.
Yeah. Was there a time when you went back when you felt you'd arrived at all? Was it easy going back?
So, well, I didn't go back into academy training. So when I had actually. We'd been training with the academy for, I think we started back in November of that year, for 2020. Yeah. And then by January time, I got called into the first team. But when I went back into November, I remember doing fitness tests and that. And like, I think the club record at Huddersfield for the 1.2 Bronco test is Ollie Russ, and he's got 4 minutes 26. And I think I came back I just turned 18 and I ran it in 4:27. So just off getting his score. But I remember feeling I was flying. I felt fit. I felt stronger. And my rugby felt a lot better. And I think that's probably when I kind of grew into me as I am now. As obviously I made my debut that season. So
you felt you'd arrived at that point, mate, when you're hitting them numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So does that genuinely make people lift their eyes and go, "This lad's ready"?
I think so. I think obviously when I was fit, I was running fast scores. I was running fast, and I think the way I was training hard, and I was kind of trying to become a leader in the academy. I was trying to I wanted to be in the leadership group. I didn't get the chance to be in that group, but I wanted to kind of prove that I was good enough to be in that group. And I remember when I started to play rugby, a lot of stuff were coming on. I was breaking tackles, breaking lines, and a lot of stuff were paying off, probably from just hard work, being at home and training a lot and kind of thinking about rugby a lot. And I think it just, being back on a field was just exciting for me again, and I got excited again. Yeah. And that's probably kind of the reason I got lucky enough to go and get into the first team and start training in that pre-season in January.
So how does going from honing half-back skills at club, at elite, playing for England, did you play for England at half-back, Will?
I did, yeah. Well, I played for about half an hour and then went to the wing, yeah. But I started at half-back, yeah. So
how does honing all that? Because you've got to guide the team, haven't you? You've got to play what you see to a degree, put your team in the right places. You're telling big lads what to do. Yeah. You're finding yourself, and then you come in and you play the odd game at half-back, the odd game at full-back, back at half. How did you find that until you nailed full-back down?
Well, I remember when I was still playing at bowling, when I was coming through at bowling, I was like the organiser in a sense. I'd call a lot of the players. I was always on the ball. Whenever we had the ball in attack, I was always on the ball. And then getting to Huddersfield, I was quite dominant then. I've always kind of been quite dominant in the sense if I want the ball, I'll try my best to get it. Yeah. And I think that were kind of probably a contributing factor in the reason that I managed to do so well through the academy. When I got back into the academy, it went back into 3 years, so I was still playing with the year above me and the year below me. But I think quite a lot of players below me and probably my own age realised that I was trying to guide the team, and probably I earned a bit of respect by playing, not by, you can earn respect a different way with different people, and especially through rugby. So I think that kind of earned me a bit of respect of just being our eager. When I were on the field, our eager. I'm a competitor. I want to win. So I think that probably it harnesses a lot of attributes as an halfback growing up and wanting to be involved and being loud as an half and talking a lot like I do. It makes it my job. It's half your job. It makes my job a lot easier, and then you're learning week in, week out through high elite level coaches of how to become a better halfback in the sense of learning different things and different moves, I suppose.
Plus, if one lad talks, mate, the next man might not boo, but next to him might. So it's a domino effect, isn't it? Everyone falls into line, don't they?
Yeah. Definitely.
So it doesn't define you this by any means. Or for me, I think it was just an unlucky situation. But the famous tackle, mate.
Yeah.
So no disrespect to who it was on. I can't remember who it was. But how did you deal with everything that come on the back of that? And because it was a lengthy ban, mate. Let's not mess about on it. It was heavy on you and that. And I've no doubt you got a lot of crap off people, and you got a lot of good off people as well. So how do you learn to take the good with the bad and shake that sort of thing off?
Well, I remember obviously my first year in Super League, I couldn't have been lucky enough. I made my debut halfway through the season, and then I played every game. Obviously, there were people who were injured, and I were in a bit of form then. And I come into Super League, and I managed to do well. So I played 13 games on the trot, and I was lucky. And obviously, there were a bit of hype around me. There were a lot of people talking about me on social media, and that's when I think the end of that season when Newcastle kind of became interested in me as a player.
Pretty early then, mate.
Yeah. So around probably December time last year, I was getting interest from NRL. I remember I had a couple of clubs that were interested in and then I had clubs in Super League and Union that were interested in me, and you kind of get I had a lot of attention for the right reasons then. And I remember like really like vividly my dad saying, look, he said, you've got it going good now. It's going good, but like everybody says, the roller coaster of rugby league, it's up and down. And one day it can be great, the next day it can be awful. And he said, look, you've got to just be ready, because with the good comes the bad, and with the bad comes the good. And he said, you've not had that bad yet, where you might be in and out of form, you might not get in the team, you've got contracts on the table, you're dealing with that stuff, you might have stuff going on at home. And I think probably the start of my second year was the toughest it's ever been for me in terms of just rugby and life. I had some family issues going on at home, and then I had the contract offer from Huddersfield that I'd not re-signed, and I were obviously talking to clubs, and I wasn't talking to clubs, but I had interest from clubs. And
you're aware of people keen.
I were aware of people being interested, and I were aware of like people giving me a lot of praise or a lot of stick on social media then, and I think it all just probably played on my mind a bit. And going into that year and making that tackle, it was just, I can't really remember it really. It was all a bit of a blur, but I remember
it was fast, mate, wasn't it? It was quick. Do you know what I mean? It's not something that's preempted. It just happened.
No, obviously it wasn't intentional.
No.
And and it was just something in the game. The game wasn't going to. I remember the game wasn't going too well. We were getting beat by Hull in a game that we thought we should have been winning in. And I remember being young halfback. I didn't get picked for round 1, and I were annoyed at that. And then I managed to get in for round 2 or 3 against Wigan, but I played awful. I got spotted all game. I didn't make my tackles. Didn't show anything in attack. But it's what happens when you get found out. I suppose you get. People do the video on you and you get realised.
And I don't think it's, sorry to interrupt you, Will, I don't think it's found out, mate. I just think we have them games, don't we? You can try too hard, can't you, mate? You can over-try. You can overdo it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, obviously, like, with that comes the pressure. Like, I want in the team, so I wanted to be in the team week in, week out. I wanted to prove that I was good enough to play. So with that probably comes a little bit of pressure where I'm trying to overplay my hand a bit. And try to prove that I was good enough, but I didn't probably focus on the right things that game. And I was lucky enough to play against Seoul for the week after because Theo pulled out on captain's run. He had a bit of an injury, a niggle. And I played that game and I remember playing really well. I remember coming off of getting a lot of stick and playing really well, and it got a bit of confidence back in me. And then that whole game, it was just tough. It was a grindy game. It was wet, it was cold, it was tough. And obviously the tackle happened. It was unintentional, but it happened. And those things in rugby sometimes can just go wrong. And obviously after I got the red card and it all blew up on Twitter. And then I got the ban for 10 weeks, which were tough. And you know, I remember deleting Twitter and Instagram when the ban happened because I was getting loads of stick, mate. And it's the stuff obviously you don't see as fans, but it's the stuff I never experienced as a player. And obviously my dad had warned me because he'd been through similar positions and situations. But it's something you can't really know until it happens to you, and
you can't prep for.
You can't prepare for it. Yeah, mate, definitely. You've hit the nail on the head there.
And it's probably the only thing you can't prep for, Will, in the elite environment, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I remember, obviously, I got the 10-game ban, which were, I think I did 10. So I did 10 weeks of I got flogged for 10 weeks. I remember being 2.5 months of just running, training. I'd come back in not in the best shape. That off season, I'd played for the Knights, and I got an injury on my ankle, so I were rehabbing that injury, and I put like 5 kilo on trying to get bigger, thinking that I needed to get bigger to play Super League, and it didn't work at all. I was overweight, I was slow, I wasn't that fit, so I used that 10 weeks as kind of like a mini pre-season and got myself back into some shape, got ready. I wanted to come back and kill it. The boys were doing well in Challenge Cups. We were getting to we got to the final, and that final were falling on my first game back, so I wanted to just make the team again. I remember I wanted to just prove to everyone that I was good enough. I wanted to prove to my teammates, the boys, that I had respect for. I wanted them to have respect for me by playing well. And it was tough. It was mentally, it was probably one of the hardest things I've gone through. But you know, I'm thankful for the experience I've had now. And looking back on it, it was something that I've learned from massively.
Yeah, well, life's a learning curve. Never mind rugby league, mate. Isn't it? So, if you don't mind, we go back a little bit. There's a few things you've touched on there that I don't think we should overlook, mate. So. Yeah, I'm not going to ask you what was going on, but was there a reach out from anyone when times were hard that you could lean on? Was there an avenue you could use to speak to somebody?
Yeah, I think obviously, like, I'm quite an open book in the sense that I do speak to a lot of people, but I remember just going through a lot of stuff, bad times, and Marlon Billy, the chief welfare officer at Huddersfield, did a great job with me. He's a fantastic person and someone who, you know, the club should hold as an high regard, and a lot of the players have a lot of respect for him. I know the coaches do as well, and he helped me massively in that sense with you know, speaking into me, and you know, making sure that I was good mentally and that I were okay, because it can be tough. And obviously you have fans. Some fans reach out to you. I've got quite a small friendship group and my family, and they made sure I were all right in that time. But yeah, it was tough. Obviously, you have the people, the keyboard warriors, or the people who think they know it all and want to give you a lot of stick. But that just you take it with a pinch of salt. That comes with the job that I'm in. It's an entertainment game, and you've got to make sure people entertain, I suppose. And everyone's got their own opinion. It's an opinion job, so you just get on with it, mate. I suppose you get on with what's going on, and you just got to kind of get through it, I suppose.
Yeah, we don't take the human element on, mate. That you just get judged on game day. Don't even get judged on your Monday to Friday training. Yeah. No one knows what happens when that front door shuts, but it's just never took into account, is it, mate? Yeah. Another thing you touched on was that great spell you had in that first year where you managed to put a run of games together. So, is it something where, like you said, there's a lot of interest early from both sides of the world? Is it something where you feel justified? You know, that time when you felt you've had to prove yourself, you've had parents going on at you, players, you've had this little like icon above your head, you know, like FIFA and that, when you got the little you probably had that in it, and now you've managed to go, well, I'm Will Pryce. Yeah, I'm here. Is it well justified, and does it feel good when you've managed to prove yourself right, but to yourself, because the others don't really matter? Yeah, definitely. I remember I've never wanted to prove anything against my dad, because him and my mum have always been the first two people to believe in me and show they believed in me more than anyone.
I just wanted to prove that I was good enough, that I am good enough, and that I wasn't just in the position I was because I were his son. A lot of people would say that to me, you're only here because your dad, or you won't be where you are because your dad. And I think that the games in Super League kind of just cemented that I was good enough, because people might be able to get you certain opportunities, but when you're there, you've got to prove. And I think I managed to obviously do quite well in that first year and probably prove to people that I was good enough to be where I was. And that was something I just enjoyed. I enjoyed that part. I enjoyed that experience and the opportunities I was getting. I enjoyed that because I remember just talking. I always remember believing in myself, but saying, look, I'm going to be able to do this and I'm going to do it. And it was something that I managed to achieve, and it was just something I was really proud of myself for. But obviously, that now looking back at it, you can't get stuck on that. And I probably got stuck on that at the end of that year. I probably took that a little bit for granted, even though I remember looking at every opportunity and being thankful and grateful. I remember just like I'd not been through any struggle yet, really, in terms of rugby wise, and it kind of opened my eyes a bit this year and made me realise that it's not as easy as it looks. Definitely.
Yeah, and on the back of that, mate, you mentioned nights. So just before we go into how the nights was, I'm quite sentimental, mate. So I'd keep a bit of stash or programs, or do you keep anything like that, or?
Well, I've got my debut shirt is all framed up in my bedroom, and I think I've got a few playing shirts from that year. I keep playing shirts, and I get shirts off different players. So I've got different players' shirts.
Yeah. Your man cave will be class when you're older, mate, won't it?
Yeah, no, yeah, I can't wait. My dad's got millions in loft. He's kept all, there's loads in there. So I remember just thinking, trying to get players' shirts or players that I played with who I respected and wanted the shirt. I'd take the shirts, and I never really kept all like that. I still kind of am, but I'm really superstitious. Like, if I wear a pair of boots and I don't play well in them, I won't wear them again for a game.
Okay.
And if I wear a pair of boxers and I do a good game, I'll wear them until I have a bad game. Or if I play well and I've eaten a certain food the night before, and I'll stick to that routine. And it's just like my warm-up. I go and do my warm-up away, like my own individual, before we go out onto the field. I'll go and do my stretching by myself because it's worked. And I'm quite superstitious in that way, but I don't really keep anything like sentimental to me after any game, unless it's a big game, like a big game.
Right. So how was the nights, mate? And how were you told? Because I think everyone just presumes it's just a phone call. Yeah, you're in. You meet up wherever you meet up. How does it work, mate?
Well, we had some sessions. So like it's kind of similar in the sense of what I did at 16. You get a few players from all the different clubs, and you all come in together and do a session. But at the same time, we were doing a session with the first team mixed. So they had the England squad and the night squad mixed at the same time. So I was lucky enough to get invited to do them sessions, and then started doing, and then I got selected for the squad by Baloo, Paul Anderson. Yeah. So we were in that camp for a week because we only had the one game against Jamaica, and that was a really enjoyable camp. And we went into the game, and obviously we had a really good game. The team were really good, and we had a team of great players with loads of talent. So it was a really enjoyable experience, and one I look back on and really enjoyed.
Yeah. And then the year after, like you said, you were in and out the team. There was loads of like speculation, or like every other week about you on the mate. And
yeah,
I can tell speaking to you now, you're a tough character. You don't really let that affect you, and when you do, you're happy to reach out to people, and you've got your course network, which is really good. But I'll just shake off speculation about you all the time. It must do you nothing sometimes.
I think obviously, like the rugby environment, playing and training week in, week out, you kind of have to put it to the back of your head, because if you don't, it eats you up. And you're training every day, and obviously your teammates probably see it, or you probably see it, but you're there to do a job at the end of the day. I'm there to make the team, so I kind of try to put it to the back of my mind, focus on Huddersfield, focus on making that team, because at the same time I want even making squads week in, week out. I want playing consistent Super League. So my main focus was to try and do my talking on the field and play week in, week out. And I probably didn't manage to do that. I maybe played 2 or 3 games, and then I'd get in and out again. And I didn't probably play 13 games again like I did the first year. But definitely after the ban, I managed to come into a bit more of a form and get a bit more confidence back in myself.
Yeah. And that week building up to that Challenge Cup final, mate, how did you find all that? And I say to the older players I've had on that have been there and done it sort of thing. You're on the verge of blowing up. I understand that, and you're ripping it up here as it is. But it's not just an ordinary week, mate, is it? As much as you're trained to say it in the League Cup, it can't just be an ordinary week. It's a big occasion and one you've grew up watching as well, mate, isn't it?
Yeah. Obviously, so I came back. That was the first week back. So that was the first week back of my. So I just ended my ban. So my ban was just ended, and that week was the first week back of me being able to be selected. So I was like, it's a bit much to ask to play. But obviously, we played Toulouse the week before at home. Theo announced it to the boys in the changing room that he wasn't going to be playing. He said, "Look, I'm not going to play. It's not worth me maybe being out for longer." I think he pulled his calf, and then in that game, Russ had tweaked his hamstring. He were having a little bit of an hamstring niggle for a couple of weeks before, and then he tweaked it again. So I remember Chris Hill coming up to me after that game, and he come up to me and said, "Look, be ready because you don't know what's going to happen." And I remember that week I was like praying that I was going to play. I never prayed for Russ to not play, but I was just like, look, if I get an opportunity, let me play.
Yeah.
And I'm just envisioning it in my head, being able to play on that field. And what told me I was 18th man, so I knew I was going to be 18th man. He said, look, Russ is 50-50 whether he's going to play or not. We don't know whether he's going to play or not. We'll find out by captain's run. That's when you'll know if you're going to play or not by captain's run. So I prepared for the week as if I were playing. I prepared with the boys as if I were going to play. I'd drop in and out of the team on the session when we were running plays and stuff. And but me and Russ Ollie Russ were like, there's me and him and a couple of other lads in Huddersfield who were like the younger lads who were all really close. But obviously we spend time with each other outside of rugby. And I said to Russ, I said, look, mate, me and you are mates first. I said, we're mates. I said, I want you to be fit. If you can play, you play. But look, don't play if you're not 100% because you don't want to make it worse. And I don't want you to end your season by playing this one game. I said, look, you've got all my confidence. You just make sure if you can, you're ready. And then me and Russ, we room share everywhere we go. So if we go away for a trip or if we play, when we play Catalan, me and Russ always room share, we're roommates. So that week I was kind of just preparing him a bit mentally and myself a bit mentally in the sense of just I wanted him to make sure he were all right. And then if I got the call up, I got the nod. I didn't have any, I couldn't look and say, look, I should be playing because I've been banned for 10 weeks. I've not played. I wasn't playing that great before. So I didn't really have any reason to go and say, look, I've got to play. But I was just there and thereabouts. If they needed me, I were happy to do that. But I was happy to just do my job to help the team. And captain's run came around. Russ got through, luckily, and he went on to play. So I remember turning around to a couple of other boys and just saying, look, I'm going to make sure when warm-up comes, I'll do my best to make sure all the boys are ready and hyped and pumped. So that was probably my job that week. And just remember taking it all in. And we went to Tottenham and we stayed in this hotel, which were amazing. We stayed in like a 5-star hotel for 3 nights. And we just experienced that. We're like, some players don't even get that in the career. So you've just got
exactly, mate.
How it is. And I loved every minute of it, to be honest, mate.
Yeah. No, it's like mega mature here, isn't it? Like, I know you're pretty modest and that, but it is. You like to think players are like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I have no doubt there's some that the dummy comes out, they're half-assed at training. That will happen, mate. It's the competitive nature in some people. It's just whether they can differentiate being a team player or a selfish player at times, isn't it? So the rest of that season, mate, how did you find it? What were the standout moments for you?
Yeah, we're good. I remember my first game back after the ban. We played Catalan, and that were ridiculous. It was boiling hot. It was like 35 degrees, but we managed to come away with a win. And I remember enjoying that game. I remember coming back and being like, right, I'm back. I'm enjoying it now. And then I probably didn't really start to pick up my form after playing a few more games until we played Warrington at home towards the back end of the year, and I scored a try, and I managed to make a cover tackle on Fulish, Josh Fulish, who obviously mates me now, but I like to remind him that I got. No, yeah, it was just, I remember just those little moments where you managed to do something that like that moment where I chased him down. It was more at the time of the game. It was more important than the try, I suppose. And it was close. They were coming back into it. We were leading by like a try or two. But those little things, those little 1%ers that probably fans don't see, it's what the boys in the team and your coach see massively. And I remember just trying to do them little things right and making sure I was doing my job for the best I could for the team.
Game changers, mate, aren't they? They're the respectful 1%ers that you all go on about that we probably ignore sometimes. So, are you someone that does set personal goals, mate? And how do you go about finding your personal goals?
I've obviously, like, I do a lot of stuff by myself and a lot of writing, and I kind of look into that stuff. I think a lot of people talk about it. A lot of like elite athletes who've been there and done it, or coaches that have been there and done it, talk about, you've got to train your mind and you've got to be strong-minded to make it to the top. And it's probably comes through experience, and it's one that I'm just trying to make sure that I've got in my locker as well, is that I'm strong up here as well as being strong at a physical level. And I set myself short-term, medium and long-term goals whenever I can, and try look at stuff realistic. You want to be hopeful, and I want to set out these great goals and, win a grand final at the end of the year. That's what every team's goal is to do, and it's one that we're looking to do this year at Huddersfield. But also I like to set myself, personal goals of make the team, and just do the best I can, really. And my goals change day in, day out. I try to take it day by day at the moment, training, and try to better myself day in, day out at training pre-season and learn a lot more and do my repetitions.
Things can change, can't they, mate? Things can happen, and so you have done great business, mate, this summer. Winter, ready for the season and that. And I've no doubt when all the papers come out and that, you'll be up or in and around the top people's top four, won't you? So how do you? It's a daft question, really, because I know how players work, but the listeners and viewers might not. How do you keep it sane and natural within when everybody's throwing them accolades at you and them tags at you?
I think it kind of comes from the boys, the group you've got. I think Watto's quite good at that in the sense that, look, there's no egos in the team. Lads like to have a joke and a laugh. I'm one of them. You might like to sort yourself up with, there's me, there's Jake, there's players in there that want to just talk rubbish, but you've got to train hard, and you've got to train hard definitely to make that shirt and to make the team. And a lot of the senior boys especially like to keep the group grounded. Remind us, look, last year were great. We've made some good signings, but we're starting now from scratch again. We're not the Huddersfield Giants team that made the Challenge Cup final, and we're not the Huddersfield Giants team that came third last year. We're back on square one with everybody at 0 points. The season starts again, so that's gone. It's out the window now, and the boys that have come in have got to do their best to make the team and to make us better. But the boys we've got already have got to do the exact same. So I think the group we've got are definitely a really good competitive group, and along with that, all the boys get along real well, which is an add-on. It's great.
No, it certainly does open them moments in your pre-season, mate, and the moments that'll help you win them tight games, won't they, and swing them round and stuff. So obviously, I understand this is going out a bit later than what we're talking, but your move's been announced for next year, mate.
Yeah.
So how does that type of thing happen? Is it just is it a standard chat that you'd have when it comes to renewal? So do they reach out to you and then you have to sit down and think, and what swings it Newcastle's way?
Well, obviously, since I've been young, I've always watched the NRL, and it's always been a dream of mine one day to go over there and play. And some of the greatest players are playing over there, and you can see the competition over there is just growing. It's getting bigger and bigger, and there's 30, 40, 50,000 at games week in, week out, 20,000 at games week in, week out. There's the Origin games are getting bigger. You're getting 80,000 at grand finals over there, and it's always one that I'm watching. I watch most NRL games along with probably most players, and that's no disrespect to Super League. It's just something that I enjoy watching and taking in. And coming obviously to the back end of my first year, I had obviously interest from numerous clubs, Super League, NRL, and a couple in Union. And Huddersfield, I think I played 10 games that first year, and I was waiting for my new contract for Huddersfield. I was still on my academy wage and my academy contract, and I was like, look, I want a new contract. I want to be settled, and I had a couple of contract offers from different clubs then to offer to pay me out, which I turned down because I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And I said to Huddersfield, I said I want to re-sign. Let's sort this deal out. And I just don't think the deal ever really got sorted from both ends where we were both happy. That carried on a bit. That carried on through pre-season into the season a bit, and then that's when Newcastle came knocking. I suppose I met up with Clint Zammit at Newcastle from Newcastle earlier on in the year, and we had a good chat about the club and the ambitions that it has moving forward, and that it kind of matched mine in the sense, but that's no disrespect to Huddersfield and the opportunities they've given me this year and definitely last year and going through, and I kind of said to the club, look, I probably won't leave early. I want to stay there and finish off my contract at Huddersfield, and kind of repay the club in general for what they've done for me. They kind of give the club and Andy Kelly give me a massive opportunity growing up, and one where I didn't really have much else left, and they looked at me and gave me an opportunity, and I'll be forever thankful for that and grateful for what they've done for me.
Oh, good on you, mate. And obviously, so before you go there, there's games to win and hopefully a cap or two to earn at the end of the year and mid-season, mate, isn't there? And so does that type of move help knowing, one, you're going with someone else? I don't know if it'll get him in bother, so I won't name out. I know it's announced, but do you know what I mean? Yeah. And two, that you already know a couple there. Like you mentioned Bailey before. Does that help, mate?
Yeah, definitely. I think I spoke to Dom and Bailey through the year, and we kind of spoke about the club just privately. I think they must have known a little bit that they were giving me a bit of interest, and it's just good to have people to know that if you're going to end up moving to the other side of the world, which is a big thing for a 21-year-old lad, that you're going to have people that you know there, and you're going to be able to feel at home. So that will probably be a big thing for me and for my mum and dad when we were looking at signing the contract with it, to make sure that I were happy off the field and make sure that I were going to be looked after in that sense. And Newcastle looks like a really good city that massively love the sport of rugby league there, and they love Newcastle as a club, and the people look like great people, and definitely the people within the club look like the right people for me, people that are going to be able to show me support on and off the field.
Yeah, and if you're happy off it, mate, you'll flourish on it, won't you? And they'll get the best of you if you get the best of them. So good luck with it all, mate. So it's come to that time now, a few daft questions. So you touched on a few before. So any pre-match superstitions other than wearing the boxes till they're on the last legs if you're winning? The food?
I do. I've got I'm really badly superstitious. I'm trying to stop it now because it's getting ridiculous. Like now like when I first started playing Super League, I used to have tuna pasta the night before and on the game day, and now I have bacon and chicken pasta bake just because luckily one time it worked. And stuff like that. I wear the same grip socks for the same game if I played well in them socks. If I played bad in a pair of boots, I won't wear them again. And just weird stuff like that, and stuff that probably makes no sense to anyone. It doesn't even make sense to me. It's just stuff that goes on in my head.
Yeah.
To keep me, I suppose.
So the definition of this next word, mate, is different for everybody. So the toughest player you've played with and against?
I think tough, like from just like as someone who I can relate to, will probably be Ollie Russell at Huddersfield. Yeah. Like as an halfback, you're a smaller lad, you get picked on quite a lot, you get spotted, and Russ is one of them players who's ridiculously tough for the position. He's fit, he makes his tackles, he does his job, and along with that, probably Chris Hill and Chris McQueen and Luke Yates and probably Leroy. I could go on forever, but they're players that I just love playing with, that are tough, that do the hard things and do the hard things week in, week out. And probably playing against, if I can think.
Again, the definition's different, isn't it? It could be how they carry out the backfield. It could be solid, like in D, isn't it? It's just whatever someone sees.
One that I probably remember the most is Liam Farrell. He's obviously been England's best back row for the past decade or so, and I remember when we played against Wigan, I played against him twice in my first year and then once last year, And I just remember him being really hard to play against. He gave me a nightmare all game. He just, the way he does his job, I don't think anybody else in Super League probably can do a better job.
Probably overlooked a lot in it, to be honest with you, because he's solid right through.
Yeah, there's some great back rows in Super League, don't get me wrong. But he's just one of them that he's just always hard to handle and tough to play against, I suppose.
Yeah. So, your favourite away ground, mate? And do you like the newer ones, or do you like the older ones?
Yeah, definitely not Cass and Wakefield. Definitely not. I get stick every time I go there, and I don't like playing at Cass, but because it's like a garden shed. But I'd probably say Saints. Yeah. I just think like obviously growing up, I've kind of supported Saints. My dad played there, and I've always kind of supported them in Super League. But I think playing there, when I played there last year, we got smoked. But like the atmosphere, the Saints fans, they were loud. The stadium's great. The pitch is nice, and that's just one that I like playing at definitely. Or Headingley, definitely.
It's a popular one, Headingley, mate. Yeah, it's very popular. So, say you're out for a few beers, the microphone ends up in your hand. Will, what are you giving us, mate?
Well, I did one the other night at the fans forum for Huddersfield with a few lads, and it were an absolute shocker. But if we did it together, but if I did one by myself, I'd probably sing Amy Winehouse Valerie. It's one that that sings out my head. I did it when I did my initiation at Huddersfield. It's just one that I can get over and done with.
Top man. So I've not asked it this. I got asked it the other week on my one that I've done. But what would you tell a younger version of yourself? So a 10, 11-year-old going through what you've been through so far, mate. What would you tell yourself then? I suppose just to keep working hard. I think that, along with just that, with every good is bad and with every bad is good. Everything will pass. Everything passes, whether it's good or bad. You can't get hung up on it. You go through tough times and you go through a lot of good times in life, and I think that's just one thing I've kind of learned now, especially going through some tough periods on and off the field. Is just that everything passes. And, you're going to come out of it either way, so not to be too worried. Take the rough with the smooth, mate. Yeah. Top man. So if you're willing to, I understand if you're not, because you don't want to upset people, but a 1 to 13 that you've played with so far, mate?
Well, I've not really played with that many different players, to be honest, mate. Obviously, I've only been at Huddersfield, played for England. I'd probably say Tui. So Tui Lollier at full back.
Yeah.
I'd have Jermaine McGilvray on one wing.
Yeah.
And I'd have some good wingers there, Ash. I'd have Matty Ashton on the other wing.
Yeah.
I'd have Leroy and Ricky Latelli in the centres.
Yeah.
I'd have Theo and Russ in the halves.
Yeah.
Chris Hill, one prop. 9, I'd have Nathan Peets.
Yeah.
10, I'd have Matty Lees. Chris McQueen and Kai Pearce-Paul in the back rows. And Luke Yates, 13, and then I've just chuck a special mention in there. I'll chuck Ash Golden at 14 because that man can play absolutely anywhere.
Yeah, he is Mr. Reliable, isn't he, mate?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No, so